Hello and welcome. My name is Shannon Kemp, and I'm the Chief Digital Officer of DataVersity. We would like to thank you for joining the most recent webinar in the DataVersity Monthly Series, Elevating Enterprise Data Literacy with Dr. Wendy Lynch. And today we are joined by a couple of special guests, Laura Sebastian Coleman, Mark Horstman, and Nicole Luke, to discuss literacy look back. What have we learned in 2024 about literacy? Just a couple of points to get us started. Due to the large number of people that attend these sessions, you will be muted during the webinar. If you'd like to chat with us or with each other, we certainly encourage you to do so. And just a note, Zoom defaults the chat to send to just the panelists, but you may absolutely change that to network with everyone. For questions, we will be collecting them via the Q&A section. And to find the chat and the Q&A panels, you can click those icons in the bottom middle of your screen to activate those features. And as always, we will send a follow-up email within 2 business days containing links to the slides, the recordings of this session, and any additional information requested throughout the webinar. And let me introduce to you our guest speakers. Nicole is the founder and president of Signific. I'm sorry, I'm tongue-tied today. A B2B company that provides analytics and project management solutions with a solid foundation in statistics. Nicole has over 25 years of experience in data and analytics. Laura is the Vice President of Data Management and Governance at Prudential and has been a data quality practitioner since 2003. She has implemented data quality metrics and reporting, launched and facilitated working stewardship groups, contributed to data consumer training programs, and led efforts to establish data standards and manage metadata. She is also the author of several books on data quality. Mark is a data management professional and CDMP practitioner with over 20 years of experience and is a data evangelist at DataVersity. Mark moved into data quality, master data management, and data governance early in his career and has been working extensively in data management since the early 2000s. And let me introduce to you the speaker for our series, Dr. Wendy Lynch. For over 35 years, Wendy has converted complex analytics into business value as a sense maker and analytic translator. A talented researcher and consultant to numerous Fortune 100 companies, startups, and healthcare giants, her own work has focused on the application of big data solutions in health and human capital management. An author of books on effective communication and analytics, Wendy has pioneered the only structured system to empower a new generation of professionals who will revolutionize the successful application of data to solve business challenges. These trained analytic translators allow companies to convert advanced analytics into actionable solutions, building a sustainable alliance between analytics and business professionals. And with that, I will give the floor to Wendy to start the panel discussion. Wendy, hello and welcome. Oh, I think you're muted.
Yes, I had to find my unmute button. Sorry about that. Hello, Shannon, and hello to all of my panelists. And welcome to everybody who has joined us today. We're going to be recapping information about what's happened this year, 2024. And we invited our panel to come back because if you joined us in January, it was these 3 folks who gave us their ideas about what might happen in 2024. So now we get to look back and see whether, in fact, some of those things did happen or whether there were some surprises. So what I want to start with is to recap again where data literacy fits. And what we highlighted in January, just to give ourselves a starting place, was that leaders don't really want to have machine learning experts. They don't really want data governance. They don't really want optimal data architecture. And they don't really want employees with high data literacy. Now, what do I mean by that? What they really want is to get timely information from data and to be able to demonstrate that there is value to having that timely, informed use of data. So they will support things that happen that will accelerate being able to achieve this measurable value. And they will essentially accept, or I might even say tolerate, investments in all of these aspects of data governance, architecture, literacy, if in fact they can get what they really want. So when we think about data literacy from the standpoint of a business leader, they really only want literacy if it's driving value in some other way. So they want evidence to support that literacy is actually contributing to this measurable business value. And we, as practitioners who think about these things, have to really assess whether we have shown that we can actually increase literacy, whether we can increase it by enough that it improves value, whether we can bring enough of the full population of workers along and improve them by a sufficient amount in order to measurably increase value for the business. So this is where we started in January, saying, can we do these things? Can we prove these things? And is this the year? So when we started out in January, I asked our panelists to give us a theme song that would push us ahead. And we had some great picks. I think it was Mark who picked Yesterday by the Beatles. Nicole, did you pick The Times They Are A-Changin'? Was that you?
Yes, by Bob Dylan. Yep.
Yep. And then also Let's Get It Started is what we heard from Laura. So this time, what I wanted them to do is to think about this past year. And is there a theme song that represents what actually happened in the data literacy world and why you selected that? So Nicole, why don't I start with you?
Okay, so when I was thinking about this one and what 2024 looked like to me, I actually came across a song, and I'm going primarily based off of the title, and it might seem kind of funny, but it's it's a song called Wiggle Sticks by the Miracle of Sound. And so one of their first lines says, "Hammer the buttons and wiggle the sticks." And it's actually referring to playing video games. But the song title reminded me a lot of what I've been seeing these days, to be honest. So it pokes fun at a thing called quick time events in video games. And one website just describes these quick time events as having the player press specified buttons in a particular order, or you have to do certain like gestures on the gamepad within a certain amount of time to guarantee your survival in the game. And just when I was thinking about kind of where I've seen data literacy and stuff going this year, is it just reminded me of how companies are just focusing so much on these tools and technology. And so figuratively, in my mind, they're wiggling the sticks to guarantee their survival in the data game. So that's kind of just stuck with me. It was a bit funny, but it stuck with me.
That's great. Wiggle sticks. I am guessing that there are people in our audience who understood that reference. I had not heard it myself. So Wiggle sticks is where Nicole is in terms of what companies are doing. And that doesn't sound like it's as complimentary as companies might like to hear, that they're simply wiggling the sticks just so they don't fall out of the game. So
Yeah,
Mark,
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
yeah. Mark, what is your song?
So I've been thinking about this year and how horribly wrong I was from last year. So I wanted to pick. I was in between Britney Spears' "Toxic" and Dua Lipa "Break My Heart." So I think I'll land on I'll land on Britney Spears, and my reasoning for this is because there was so much that happened because of AI's emergence into data literacy, um, that there are good things and bad things that are happening in the space right now. So I picked "Toxic" by Britney Spears. even though, plus minus, all AI's fault. That's why.
It's all AI's fault. Okay. So the toxic then is referring to how AI has sort of infiltrated all of this, and it hasn't necessarily been a good thing. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, sometimes it's a great thing, and sometimes it leads people horribly astray.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. All right, Laura, we have wiggle sticks and toxic. This is not the mood that we had in January. Where are you going to take us?
Yeah, so the song that I picked, let me start with the artist, right? I started thinking about the effect of Neil Young, and this is not just because Mark is Canadian. But when I listen to Neil Young, it's like he's evocative and and you and he wants to persuade you of things, but he kind of forces you to think about them. And he's got such a range of styles. So I came to the song "Comes a Time," which is kind of the opposite of my pick in January, which was "Let's Get It Started." Because at the beginning of January, I really was excited about the momentum that had been gained around the concept of data literacy. And even though there's still sort of a lot of disagreement about the details, there was an energy around it. And I feel like in part because of AI, um, people are not thinking about investing in themselves and investing in their skills. They're hoping that AI can take care of things. And so I feel like I'm in a much more philosophical mood about it. And the opening line of the song is "Comes a time when you're drifting, comes a time when you settle down." And I feel like this year has been in that space of still trying to figure things out, but trying to figure them out in light of a very significant change in how we think about data uses and how, frankly, we put data to use. Um, I'm both optimistic and pessimistic about the effects that AI is likely to have on the effort to improve data literacy and indeed any kind of literacy.
Wow. So you are not quite as enthusiastic as you were when the year started. And you also think that AI is interfering with people's perspectives about what needs to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm even more enthusiastic about the need for data literacy. I mean, yeah. So.
Right, right. So, and in a way, what I'm hearing is essentially from all of you that AI has almost been a distraction. That it has pulled us, we don't have our eye on the ball because we sort of think we don't even need to have an at bat anymore, because AI is going to come in and save us in some way. Am I hearing a little of that? Is that right, Laura? Let me start with you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there are several different effects that are coming from AI. Just the existence of AI. The first is the distraction. It's the new thing that people are most interested in, and there's real work that we need to do, especially in a governance space, right? Because AI represents new risks, and so it needs additional controls and the like. So that there's the distraction, there's the fact that there's more work. And I think, Mark, you may have been kind of getting at this with your comments. People are using AI to help them answer questions and learn things. And and AI can be really helpful, right? It can get you, 75% of the way of a draft of something that you need to articulate, those kinds of things. But the downside is there's two downsides. One is if you don't already have a degree of data literacy, if you're not already fairly literate, it's very easy to believe what you get from AI without looking at it critically, right? Like to say, okay, this is an answer, but is it going to work, right? The second thing is because AI can do a lot of the heavy lifting of writing, it also means it's doing a lot of the heavy lifting of thinking, and that thinking skill is the primary skill of data literacy. So if we're allowing AI to do that heavy lifting, it's like asking somebody else to have to do your workout for you, right? They're gonna, somebody's gonna sweat and look good, but you're not gonna tone your muscles, right? So I think those are among the risks that AI presents that are directly connected with building literacy skills within an organization.
Right. So you're saying one of the biggest risks is that we're sort of outsourcing our own thinking, handing it off to them, and by virtue of to the AI gods and goddesses of, and it's going to make us even less skilled because we're going to be out of practice doing some of the thinking, or we're not going to get those skills in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know this wasn't the question, but I think the theme was so clear with you guys. Any comments, Nicole, about this and AI and what it's done to cause us to do the wiggle sticks?
I mean, I really liked Laura's comment about it being a distraction. And so one of the things for me that I've seen anyways, is that I've talked to a few companies now where they're looking to put in new technologies into their companies. And it is distracting them because they're thinking about how they can integrate AI into the work stream, how they can integrate AI into their work components. But they're not thinking about, but how will people use it? And what decisions are they going to make from it? How will it help them make better decisions that will, drive business value? It's more, we're doing it because it's the thing to do. And I think it's all being driven by AI because everybody's doing AI. Everybody feels like they're behind on AI and everybody just wants to catch up. So instead of doing the important work on building data literacy in an organization and working on how to make better decisions with data, they're focusing on things like how can we get people to use AI more effectively? So I think it is a distraction and they're not focusing on the right questions.
Yes. Yes. Mark, anything else on this topic? You did start us down this path with toxic, but any other downsides or silver linings that you want to mention? Because we'll probably dive into this more as we go, but anything
Yeah,
else?
for sure. So I would love to echo Laura and Nicole's excellent points, and I think those are all valid. Where I come from this, and I recently read the AI Governance Comprehensive and posted a review on that book, and it talks a lot about how to tackle all this stuff. It talks a lot about use cases and following exact use cases for AI and not just jumping into it. But what I see AI, especially as it relates to data literacy, is doing is it's being a force multiplier or a skill multiplier. It's taking what you know and making that better for you. The downside is if what you know is negative, it's making you worse at your job faster. If what you know is positive, it's making you good at your job faster.
Got it. Yeah, I guess the acceleration goes both directions faster, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I want to point back to a few things that we said in January. And this is obviously very, very brief recap. And it's interesting because I think some of the points that were made had to do with that literacy will continue to keep growing as a trend, but that the growth would be pretty incremental. It wasn't going to be, I think Nicole used a snowball as the visual, that the snowball will keep rolling and it'll grow more as it keeps going. But there was this feeling that AI was going to encourage literacy. It was going to spark more curiosity, and people would realize that in order to make the most of AI, we would have to have literacy. And Mark, you pointed out that if we're going to start using distributed models of having data that's federated, that there would be a broader involvement by people across the organization in becoming more literate. And so in many ways, this was aspirational, I think, on all our parts, that AI was going to be a force for good. And that because we need more literacy, people would realize that and make efforts, like redouble their efforts in order to do that. We also said that thinking needed to change, that we needed to stop calling it literacy because we don't want to call people illiterate, and that this was working against us. We said we needed to focus on what literacy can do and not be too excited about the tools, and yet Nicole points to the wiggle sticks that we've ended up with here at the end of the year. And that we shouldn't be focusing on literacy, but what literacy can help a company achieve. And so there was a lot of conversation about needing to change our mindset about what this means, and have a culture of data, not just more educational tools. And then lastly, when I said, what would you tell people to do right now to help jumpstart literacy efforts? There was a lot of your conversations were about small steps that can help create that culture shift. Talk about small wins, do a newsletter that describes really great examples, to start by going to the top down and having executives and leaders become more literate and model that behavior. And Laura told us just examples, make sure that people can relate to it. So that's where we started. And already we're seeing that rather than AI being a force for improving and encouraging more literacy, in many ways it has gotten away from us, and it has actually turned us in some cases in the wrong direction. So the next question that I'd like you all to answer, and especially in thinking about where we started in January, is what was the most important development or trend? And was it a big advancement or a small incremental one? So why don't I start with you, Laura?
Yeah, so in my notes that I prepped before we met, I had important development, AI. And I don't want to repeat what I said before, but I do want to just emphasize one piece of it, and that is that AI is both an opportunity and a risk. And I really think that the risk is about the potential to lose skills, or lose the time to develop them or the need to develop them. So when I talk about literacy, I talk about knowledge, skills, and experience. You need to know things, you need to be able to do things, and you need to have actual experience doing those things so that you can do them well and you can learn them sort of from the, the inside out, right?
Right.
And I think with the presence of AI, we really do lose the chances for people to actually be manipulating data and to be thinking about data. So that is an important development. And I think from a data literacy perspective, we know AI is here, right? Nobody's sort of denying it, and everybody wants to take advantage of it. So it's not going to be the next CB radio, it's going to be the next internet, right? And so we need to, I think, figure out how to help people learn more about data while accepting and taking advantage of the fact that AI is part of that environment in which they learn about data. And that is, I think that is an interesting challenge. So, I emphasize the risk, but I think there's also a really big opportunity here, but I think it's a heavier lift than it would be if we didn't suddenly have this new flood of information that's being generated by computers that we have to, sort through. So,
Got it. Yeah, you're elaborating on that same theme, but I agree. I agree with you. There's definitely a big risk, but there might be some opportunity in there too. What do you think, Mark? What was the most
Yeah,
important development?
well, and Laura's got it right again, and which I could just say all webinar. um, with the advent of people doing data products, I do want to highlight that because I did say that at the beginning of the year, and I do believe that that's true. And there were a lot of people producing data products, selling data products, doing internal data products, and that did improve literacy over time. The AI component did a little bit of a backslide, but what I'm starting to see now in solutions is natural language chat interfaces where people can ask about data or even do natural language queries against data. And this is why I say there's pluses and minuses, because sometimes if you ask it a question and don't know how to ask that question, then you'll get an answer back that doesn't really line up with what you asked. And here's where we need a human in the loop, which is what they say in AI, where, hey, there needs to be somebody in between, and somebody needs to be involved in, helping the AI produce the right answer and helping the person ask the right question. So there's still that human in the loop component there to make this all work. So the big advancement, AI, the small incremental one, people are doing data products and they still need to know what their data product is. And they have a responsibility to people who are consuming that product downstream to make sure it's of high quality, makes sense, and that people can understand it.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, these are it. I think we all at the beginning of the year were thinking about all of the great things that AI was bringing and the potential. But I don't know, obviously, any of us saw it as a way that it would hamper people's interest and ability to.
Now that everybody's seeing Wicked, it's very Wizard of Oz. It's because of the wonderful things it does, right?
Right, exactly, exactly. So Nicole, anything else that you observed that is an important development in data literacy?
Yeah, I think I'd like to also just go back to kind of a term that I used at the beginning of the year when I said that it was going to be more of a snowball that will continue to grow and gain momentum. So I think the introduction of AI was the big bang, but I don't think it's grown by these leaps and bounds in the last year. I do think that it was still a snowball that was gaining momentum. You know, like I think back to just some small things. Like we all thought, people were so scared at the beginning of the year that AI was going to actually take over entire industries and get rid of job titles completely. Like I could read a ton of things about copywriters thinking their jobs were going to be gone by the end of the year. And that just hasn't happened, right? So it definitely hasn't been this, you know, it's obviously creeped its way into every business in certain capacities. Definitely, I would say it's the most notable trend of 2024. But it didn't get rid of skills needed or job titles, because I think people started understanding that we're not there yet. You know, like, yeah, sure, I can get LinkedIn to help, you know, AI to help me write a LinkedIn post, or I can use Canva's Magic Studio, but I can't necessarily get it, you know, like I'm not even at jobs that I've been at, you know, people have said, oh, just go throw that into Chat GPT to kind of get it started for you. But at the end of the day, the human still has to deal with that information and turn it into something usable and tweak it, because the AI tool doesn't take it 100% of the way. It takes it maybe 20 or 25% of the way. And to Laura's earlier point, it does take in some ways the thinking out of it, but it does give you, you know, and you have to prompt it properly. So I do think it has grown, but I don't think it has overgrown the way we thought it would at the beginning of the year. And the other thing I wanted to just mention as well is at the beginning of the year, I talked about one of the big advancements that I thought would be out there was an increase in data courses being offered by educational institutions. And I did actually see this, and I think we're still continuing to see more courses out there, and of course on topics like AI. But I think what we didn't necessarily take into account at the beginning of the year is I saw that as a good thing. But looking back now, I think part of the reason that there were so many courses out there and that they're still out there and people are taking courses is because of the high number of tech layoffs that we've seen in the last couple of years. So people are just trying to upskill themselves and stay current on what's out there. And it's unfortunate that they're doing it because we are letting a lot of people go, a lot of really talented people. But it's also good on the other hand that they're using education as a way to upskill themselves and learn. So I think we have this opportunity to educate people on AI because of all of these changes we've seen in the tech industry in the last couple of years.
Right, right. And it won't be a topic today, but I would love to at some point discuss how hard it has been for professors to stay current in a way that can help the new graduates be relevant in today's environment, because it changes so fast. Used to be a statistics professor could teach the same course for 30 years and it was still relevant, and that is no longer the case. So there's that kind of disruption too. So next question. Can you pick something, it doesn't have to be just this year, but tell us something surprising, disappointing, or satisfying that you noticed regarding data literacy. And so I'll let you start this time, Mark. You can pick one of those or two of those. What was surprising, disappointing, or satisfying that you noticed?
No, we've been jumping up and down on this AI bandwagon a
Mhm.
lot, but I do kind of want to highlight how impressed I am with the nature of how some vendors have implemented chat functionality into their data governance tools. Some of it is really, really outstanding, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future. So, yeah, it blows me away every time I see some of these demos. And I know it's a demo, but it does make me quite optimistic that we'll land on something that'll be meaningful and useful for folks out there.
And so give me an example of how something impressed you.
Well, so in ye olden days, we used to always say data governance at the point of usage, right? So we want to hit people with definitions for things, what things mean as they're consuming a report. And now with these tools, not only can you have like a document that you've written or supporting information for a report, but you can have a chat interface on the side and ask it natural language questions about, hey, what is this thing? And what does it do? And how does this work? And why did that number go up? And those kinds of things. So I have optimism that the tools will get there. They're just not there yet.
Got it. Okay, very cool. What about you, Nicole?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump off the AI bandwagon for a minute. And
Thank you.
it's something, it is something that was disappointing to me, unfortunately, this year. Is I was really hoping that I would have seen more momentum in data storytelling. You know, so like, don't get me wrong, it's out there, it's important, and there's a lot of good people who are teaching about it and posting about it. But I was really hoping it would make more inroads, especially in some of the less mature data companies. Unfortunately, I'm still seeing so many just dashboards and reports, and then just not as much data storytelling to help get those insights and make decisions and take action. You know, and I'm just so disappointed that data literacy is focusing on technology and tools. I mean, I've already said it a couple of times, but like my LinkedIn feeds, they're full of advertising newest data tools that'll do the work for you. But, you know, companies, they want to hire people who have experience in a particular tool. And, you know, we're just not giving the human element, in my opinion, the attention that it deserves. You know, like technology is just a tool, and people can learn tools. Like we're all learning all these lovely tools for AI. And so they're not focusing, in my opinion, on about like the problem they're trying to solve and approaching those problems with the right data mindset. Like that's just foundational. And without this mindset, companies they're going to struggle and to build a literate organization, no matter how many tools they buy or training courses they send their staff on, or how much AI they implement, until they understand that it's not about the tools, it's not about the AI, it's about what am I trying to solve and how can I use data to help me solve that problem. I don't think we're just not going to see the inroads, I think, in the data storytelling world until companies stop going down the next shiny path of tools. Until they stop wiggling the sticks, we're just not going to see inroads in data storytelling, unfortunately.
Right. Because if the tools, as you say, if you don't have a good plan for what you're going to use those tools for, it's never going to quite get you where you need to go.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I agree with you. What about you, Laura? Anything surprising, disappointing, or satisfying that you?
Yeah, so I first want to just echo Nicole's observation. Of all of the things in data management and data governance, literacy is the most focused on the human being, right? It's like, how do you develop your skills? How do you build your knowledge? It can't be accomplished through a tool. It can be aided by a tool, but it's not the kind of problem you can solve just with a tool. So I couldn't agree with you more, Nicole. And I like the idea of, part of learning is you learn through stories, among other things, but when you learn through stories, you remember, and that is very powerful. So in response to the question, I'm going to start with some things that disappointed me, and then I'll lead to something that I found very satisfying. So the thing that disappointed me is not focused specifically on data literacy, but more generally on literacy. And I think it is a warning for those of us who want to promote data literacy. And that is that general literacy is falling, at least in the US and through other parts of the world as well. But I think there's a real risk to our ability to get value from data and to use data for good purposes, because there's a decline in general literacy. And there was recently an article in the Atlantic about, students arriving at college and not being able to read a full book or not having been asked in high school to read a complete book in a semester and the like. And there's also just a sort of general decline in how much people read. You know, there isn't, most people get a news feed, they read headlines, they're not reading magazines, they're not reading books, they're not necessarily even reading beyond the headline in their news feed. And I think that when I read those stats, I found that very disappointing, especially since one of the subheads in what I was reading said, you know, students don't value reading. They don't see reading as valuable. That's a dangerous thing. On the flip side, though, I attended a conference sponsored by my home DAMA chapter, DAMA New England, and we had two speakers on data literacy. So Valerie from the Data Lodge and Jordan, whose last name always escapes me, but he's written several books on data literacy. And they were very smart. They were very sensible about the problems that they're, you know, that they think we need to solve with data literacy. And they recognized that, you know, this isn't an instant process. It really is a process of cultural change and improvement. And the reception that they got and the questions that they got, it kind of lifted my my hope that, you know, there is a lot of good thought work out there, and there are a lot of people who do really care. Even, you know, this series that you've been running, Wendy, when I look at the titles and I read the summaries, I haven't been able to attend, but I've been following it. And I'm like, there's a lot of people really trying to make this better. And so that part I find very, very satisfying, that there are people willing to do the work and who know that it's valuable.
Oh, I like that one. Yeah, I think we all are seeing the both sides of it, and I hear that too, that there's frustration and then also optimism, that there is real concern, but then little glimmers of hope too. So I like that one, and that's great that you've seen some examples where people are really taking this to the next place.
Wendy, would you mind if I just made a comment about something that Laura said for a
Yeah,
minute?
sure. Please do.
Just it really got to me when you said how in the article you read that students don't see the value of reading. Because in my very brief stint as a junior high math teacher, one of my biggest challenges was when a student would come to me and say, but when will I ever use this in the real world, right? They're talking about, you're teaching them theoretical stuff to them because they don't have the experience to apply it into the real world yet. And it just really hit me that now they're saying that about reading and books, which is, in my mind, like as a teacher, I felt it was my job to show them why it was important, you know? So I would structure assignments in a way that would really show them the value. Like one of the things I did, for those of you who are from Canada, is I did a Dragon's Den project with my junior high class, right? I made them take their spreadsheets and their decimals and their integers, and I made them turn that into a business plan. And I made them do a profit and loss statement on what they expected to make. And so then when they asked me, when am I going to ever use this in the real world, Mrs. Luke? And I'm like, here's how you're going to use it in the real world, you know, little student A. Because I think that's the job of the teachers, to also, you know, imbue the students with that, that knowledge of like, you're still young, you don't know what's out in the real world. I've been there, and here's how you can use it. Because it's just their personality. They want to get out of a lot of things, at least what I've seen in the classroom. And it's sad that they're now doing that with reading, because it really was the realm of math for the longest time. And the fact that it's coming into literacy in general really concerns me, to be honest.
Yeah. And I'm a person who would consistently say to my kids, even when they were young, you know, if they solved some problem, I would say, you used algebra to do that. Did you know that?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It is
No.
very scary.
It is.
And I feel like a curmudgeon saying that, but then, you know, when I read this article and I thought about it, it's like, wow, there always have been people who maybe don't enjoy reading, but it seems like it now occupies a very different place in our culture. And I think that's what's scary.
Yeah, agree, agree. Good, great comment. So we have one more question that we will look at. And let's now be forward looking. If there is one thing that is different or new that you would expect could change data literacy and data culture in 2025. And we've talked a little bit about the things that did change pretty significantly and how they maybe got in the way. So what different or new might you expect? And why don't we go ahead and start with Nicole?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's a different or new thing. I would say it's a different or new way of looking at something that's always existed, to be honest. And what I would like to see is that companies start looking at the people and the human resources in their companies, and they start valuing the intangible skills like communication and storytelling, you know, instead of focusing on things like tools or building their AI to the nth degree, you know, to say, hey, you know what, my best resource is not that brand new tool that I bought. It's the people using that tool who will help me make better decisions. You know, like, obviously I'm not a fortune teller. I got a lot wrong this year, but, you know, seeing, especially in the corporate world where like companies are large, things are very slow to change. You know, like if you wanted to bring in an enterprise tool, it's going to take at least a year for you to migrate something off of an old tool and onto a new tool. But a person, they can change in much faster time than that, right? And I mean, unfortunately, I don't know if the landscape's going to be much different in 2025. AI has definitely not burnt out people's, you know, ideas yet. So I still think we're unfortunately going to go down that path. But what I would love to see is companies starting to focus more on their people and how those people can help use the tools that they have to solve their business problems better.
That's a great point. And that would be something that is a little different and new, given what we see in most companies today. What about you, Mark?
Yeah, actually, Nicole kind of stole my answer a little bit because I was thinking about exactly that. I recently read a book by Dr. Haskell called Driving Your Self-Discovery, and it really highlighted the need to be introspective about how you function as a person and understanding how other people function as workers to build a data culture and then ultimately build a data team. So it was rather quite fascinating to think about things again in that perspective. I think if one thing is to change in the next year as data professionals ourselves, we need to take it upon ourselves to stop using data literacy as a clutch as to why our executives don't understand things. We have to look inwardly first before we blame our CEOs for not understanding our bar charts.
Yes, good point. Good point. And some of that storytelling and some of that is a skill in interpretation that would
Oh
be,
yeah,
be
like
very
storytelling. Like
Yeah.
I was, if I was unmuted, you would have heard me agreeing to the storytelling. Yeah.
All right. So Laura, what about you? Different or new that you would expect to change literacy or culture in the future?
So I want to, first of all, I agree with what Mark and Nicole have said just about people being at the center of this. I mean, ultimately, it is about people. I think I hope that once people get over the shiny new object response to AI. Um, they they will see the ways in which they can use it as a tool. You know, if it, and I was thinking about this when Mark, when you were speaking, right? Bear with me. Dr. Deming, in his 14 points, says, you know, drive out fear, right? And I think one of the reasons that it is hard to build a culture that respects and uses data is because people are afraid of data. You know, uh, we sometimes talk about, you know, people being data people or not data people, but I think there's a lot of people who truly fear data in the way that they fear math, right? Like, oh, this is too complicated for me and I can't do it. If AI becomes that way, I think we are going to have real trouble. But if we can establish our relationship to AI so that it really is a tool that helps us get where we need to be more quickly, then I think then I think people will start to look more closely at the data that trains AI because they're going to want a better result and a more reliable result. And I think it would be fantastic if the AI revolution resulted in people looking and being more careful and intentional about the data they create that they then want to use to get insights from, right? In the same way that you might say someone who, you know, learns to cook suddenly understands ingredients much better than they did before they were cooking themselves. So that is what I would really like to see. I don't know if I can say I expect that, especially within just, you know, the coming year, but I hope that there will be some glimmers of that.
Yes. So you hope that it will spark more interest and have people pay more attention because they're worried about what they're getting out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because they want to get, they see its power and they really want to get more than they can get with unreliable data.
Got it. Great. Well, Shannon, I don't know, do we have questions that are queued up?
We do not, no questions currently, but if you have questions for the panel, feel free to put them in the Q&A section. Anything before we wrap it up, we've got a little time here.
Yep, that would be great. Also, I will make a comment that with regard to storytelling and figuring out how to translate data into value, we do have the Become an Analytic Translator course that is live on Dataversity. And we are hot in the middle of a communication for data professionals course that should be launching early in the year. So any other questions, either in the chat or if you would like to put them in the Q&A?
Don't see anything. Everyone's been making lots of great comments throughout the presentation and the discussion. So, but I don't see any questions.
No?
No, it's just been a great conversation with everybody.
Yes, yes. It might be retitled Questions and Concerns about AI.
You can
Right?
blame me for that, Wendy. I always get on the AI bandwagon.
Well, I think everybody did. I don't think you were alone. I don't think you were alone. So,
I love it. Oh, well, I am sad to announce this is the final webinar in this series, but you will see a lot more from Wendy coming up. We have a live online class next year coming up with her. Oh, we do have a question that came in. It's somebody asked if there's anybody who you know is doing data literacy well.
yes, good question. I'll open it up to anyone on the panel.
So I'll respond and this is based on the Dama New England conference, day-long conference that we had. So Travelers, I have not worked for Travelers myself, but Travelers has a really good data culture program. And I've heard Teresa from Travelers speak about their program several times over the years, and it has every time she speaks about it, they're developing new aspects of it. So it's both a testament to the fact that it can be done, and also to the fact that it grows and develops over time. So it can be done. There's people out there, doing a good job helping their organizations learn and take advantage of their own data.
That's great. Other examples, either Mark or Nicole?
Yeah, my good friend Colette at Nate does newsletters like I used to do, and she's found great success with that. Just a somewhat frequent engagement with folks, getting people to think and read about data once in a while. I don't remember what her cadence is now, if she's still doing them monthly or if she's doing them quarterly, but it really does help keep the thinking alive in everybody. So yeah, if you take anything away, and I said this last year, like newsletters are a good thing to do, like short, sweet communication about data, just to keep data top of mind with folks, is a great way to help with literacy, and Nate's doing a good job at that.
But you have to read, and we heard that's an issue.
That's true. Luckily, it's higher ed, so well, I don't know if that makes it better.
Any last comments about that topic? Okay.
All right. Well, we had other questions come in, but we've got about 3 minutes left. What would you say is the best thing to do to get people away from thinking about AI as a shortcut?
That is interesting. There's nothing wrong with shortcuts if they get you to where you need to be. In fact, then so one of the changes this year for me is I actually started using AI, right? When like at the time we met last year, I hadn't really used it. Everybody comes to these things differently, but now I actually will run things through, especially if I have something I need to shorten or the like. And so I find it a useful tool as long as I know what I'm talking about. When I don't tend to use it to ask questions that I know nothing about. I would rather just go and either read, God forbid, a book or a full Wikipedia thing to start. So I don't think it's bad to use it as a way to do things more efficiently. I think the risk is that it can give you a wrong answer and you could not even know it if you're not already familiar with the material. And I've seen, like, when some of my colleagues have kind of given me drafts on, hey, this is what data governance is about, and I look through them and I'm like, this doesn't work for our program. So again, it's almost a peculiar or a very specific challenge within literacy writ large to be able to look at a piece of information and to look at it critically, to be able to judge whether you believe it or not. If you don't already have that skill, then AI is a bad shortcut, right? Because it's going to perpetuate incorrect ideas or ideas that are off base. If you do have that skill, then I think it does make things move more quickly if you can get that draft and work with it. So it's more the literacy part of it that
Right.
I would want to be effective.
Got it.
I just have one quick comment too about that question in terms of away from using it as a shortcut. One of the things that I've started asking when people give me something is very much to like what Laura said in terms of having to know your topic is AI is not very good yet at quoting sources very well. So I ask for, where did you get that from? And if they can't give me a link or a link that actually goes to the place that they said it would go to, which actually AI doesn't, because sometimes I prompted it to also provide sources and I've clicked on the sources and it has nothing to do with the topic it's written about. That can also, dissuade them from using it as their whole way of communicating, because they then have to prove where they got that source data or the source information, I should say.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Oh, well,
I
I'm
did-
afraid that, yeah, all the time that we have, we're right at the top of the hour. Again, like I was saying before, I'm so sad that this is going to be the last webinar in the series, but we're going to see so much from Wendy. So don't fear. We're going to be bringing her back more. So
And I just want to say a thank you to everyone who has attended over these past couple of years. I've really enjoyed it and I've enjoyed the interactions. Thank you to our panel members for coming back yet again. And thank you, Shannon.
yes, thank you so much, Nicole and Mark and Laura. Really appreciate it. It's what a great webinar. And again, just a reminder, I will send a follow-up by end of day Monday for this webinar with links to the slides and links to the recording for y'all. Thanks, everybody. Hope you all
Thank
have a
you.
great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.